I remember the day as if it were yesterday. He walked away smiling, his eyes hiding storms behind sunshine. Hours later, that same man returned, his face soaked in tears, his soul collapsing. What happened in between? The story isn't simple. It's love, regret, and the kind of pain words barely carry. Welcome to Unseen Romance, where stories of love and heartbreak unfold like secrets whispered in the dark. Subscribe, like, and comment. Your voice keeps these stories alive. My name is Ethan. And if love has ever been kind to me, it was when I met Clara. She wasn't the loudest in the room, not the kind who turned heads with glamour. But her silence carried music, and when she looked at me, I swear it felt like the world finally noticed me too. Love didn't strike me like lightning. It crept in like dawn, slow, gentle, unshakable. Coffee conversations, walks under quiet skies, fingers brushing by accident until it no longer felt like an accident. She laughed at things I thought no one would understand. I smiled at her fears as if they were mine to protect. But love has a shadow. The closer we grew, the louder my own doubts became. Could I keep her safe? Could I give her the life she deserved? And Clara, she had her own ghosts, insecurities she never voiced. Our love was strong, but beneath it, cracks began to whisper. One night, as I kissed her forehead, I told her, "Don't ever doubt me." Her eyes softened, but I saw it. The flicker of fear, the silent question she didn't ask. And that was the beginning. Not of the love story, but of the misunderstanding that would break us. I smiled when I left her that night, unaware that doubt had already entered our home. It started small, missed calls, late replies. My mind was full of work, plans, a surprise I was preparing for her. But her heart was filling the silence with stories. She began to look at me differently, as if every smile I gave was half true, as if my silence had answers she couldn't bear to hear. Then came the night. She followed me. I didn't know. I was with a colleague, planning Clara's birthday. She laughed at something I said, her hand brushing mine as we looked over the gift idea. It was innocent, but Clara didn't see innocence. She saw betrayal. That night when I returned, Clara was gone. Her note lay on the table, ink smudged by trembling hands. If love was real, Ethan, it wouldn't hurt this much. I read it 1,000 times. My chest tightened with every word. She thought I betrayed her. The girl she saw wasn't a stranger to me, but she was no rival to her either. She was helping me create magic, but Clara didn't wait for the reveal. I had walked out of her life smiling, planning a surprise. I returned crying, broken by the silence of her absence. Her perfume still lingered in the room, but her presence was gone. And so was my chance to explain. Days turned into nights, nights into endless torture. I searched, I called. I begged mutual friends. Nothing. Clara had vanished into the shadows of her pain, but love has strange ways of pulling two souls back. Weeks later, fate placed her in front of me, in a cafe, her hands trembling around a coffee cup, her eyes hollow, robbed of laughter. I froze. My heart wanted to run, my feet wanted to stay. Finally, I whispered, "Clara." Her eyes lifted. They were colder now, but storms swirled inside. Why Ethan? Why her? Was I never enough? I broke. Right there, in front of strangers, I broke. The truth spilled from me, not polished, not rehearsed. I told her about the surprise. I placed the gift I had kept safe on the table. Her favorite book, signed with a message she once dreamed of reading. It was for you. All of it was for you. My tears weren't shameful anymore. They were confessions. She listened, but her silence was sharper than knives. Finally, she stood. For a second, I thought she'd walk out again. But she whispered, almost trembling, "If it's true, then why does it still hurt this much?" And with those words, I realized, truth doesn't erase pain. Sometimes it makes the wound deeper. Clara left the cafe that day, but she didn't leave my mind. I kept replaying her question, why does it still hurt? Because love, I realized, is cruel. It demands trust even when hearts are bleeding. I wanted to chase her, but instead I waited. Sometimes love isn't about running after. It's about standing still, showing you're not afraid to be found again. Days passed. My smile became a ghost. My laughter, extinct. Until one evening, there was a knock. I opened the door, and there she stood. Clara. Her eyes carried hesitation, but her presence carried hope. I don't know if I'm ready to forget, she whispered, "but I can't forget you." Tears fell before I could stop them. I held her hands, not tightly, just enough to let her know I was still here. Still hers. But fear crept in with hope. I asked her, my voice breaking, "What if next time you don't come back?" She looked at me, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled. Not the smile of certainty, but of choice. Of love choosing to stay despite the cracks. We didn't promise perfection that night, but we promised presence. And sometimes that's all love needs. He walked away smiling, returned crying. But together, they learned love is not about flawless trust. It's about holding on when the heart trembles. And though scars remained, so did hope. They chose each other, not perfection. Thank you for being part of this story from Unseen Romance. Love is fragile, but it's also the strongest thing we carry. Subscribe, like, and comment to keep these stories alive. And don't miss the next one. It begins with a forgotten letter and ends with a haunting truth.